Hi friends, and welcome back. In this video I'd like to feature an oracle deck that was actually gifted to me by a friend, somebody whom I love and admire, and I know that you do too, because I'm speaking of Natalia from Ouroboros. Now, Natalia, if you're watching, I just want to say again, thank you so very much. I really am sincerely grateful. Thank you for your kindness and generosity, and I'm so grateful because I told Natalia I'm super curious about this deck. It really has piqued my interest, but I'm being a very conscious consumer at the moment. I don't want to grab a deck unless I really sense that I'm going to have a working relationship with it. But having said that, my finger was hovering over that buy button because I was sensing that this deck comes with a particular purpose. It comes with specifics, and that's what I like. Even though, don't get me wrong, I love, oh my God, how many beautiful oracle decks are there out there that have stunning artwork, that are designed to take us on a journey via that beautiful artwork and the color combinations and perhaps a keyword to boot. Love it. But I don't need a shelf full of them. So I just want to be more specific about my tarot and oracle decks and keep the diversity there. So I thought this is something a little bit different. And the deck that I'm speaking of is the Labyrinth Oracle by Walter D. Pullen and Kathy Pullen. Not a husband and wife team, by the way. Siblings, which I thought was an interesting collaboration. This is a 109 card deck. And even though it's called an oracle, it's as if this card was born out of this middle ground that sits between tarot and oracle, because this deck actually features its own brand of major arcana, a minor arcana, court cards, and then some other featured cards throughout, adding up to 109. So it is a little bit different. And before I forget, this deck is available on Game Crafter. So I was really teetering towards buying this deck, and I happened to mention to Natalia, because I knew that she had purchased the deck. And I just asked if she wouldn't mind sharing with me a little bit about her journey with the deck as time goes on, because I'm just trying to get my feelers out there for this deck. And bless her, she sent me a copy, and I think that's a really beautiful, generous thing to do. So, first of all, before I forget, I better show you this. I thought, oracle deck, what will it arrive in? Well, it'll arrive in a tuck box, of course. No, my friends. Look at this. Beautiful pine box. Ah, love it. I'm so impressed. Inside, there's like a crushed velvet blanket on the bottom to protect the cards and allow them to sleep comfortably. So I'm really thrilled to have this on my tarot shelf. It's really quite unique and very, very solid, obviously. What else can I show you before I go any further? The backing, very nice, I like. I think it's a shame that we're dealing with copyright. And is there any need to place the title of the cards at the top, the title of the deck, I'm sorry? Personally, I would say no need. Here's just a little info card, and I love these two together, quite dynamic. So yes, backings are very cool, but it's a shame that we've got the copyright and the... I know there's copyright and all that jazz, but I just think it's a shame. I would love to have that font if it must be on there for any reason. All that aside, the guidebook is very informative. It is 148 pages long, and I did enjoy reading the whole lot, including the introduction. And speaking of which, I'll tell you just a little tiny bit about the creators. Walter D. Pullen combines writing, he has a degree in computer science, and he also loves to serve the planet as a light worker. Along with that, he authored the freeware astrology software called Astrolog, which I've been aware of for some time, and I knew that name rang a bell, and now I know where it's from. His sister Kathy, on the other hand, is very much involved in dance, acrobatics, and distance running, and her curiosity about the natural world led to a doctorate in physics. She also loves to create art, especially fantasy work. And in this case, she took to using colour pencils for the artwork. And when you see the detail in the artwork, wow, I take my hat off to her. If this is freehand with colour pencils, oh, how I wish I had that gift. Now, speaking of the artwork, before I go any further, you may be forgiven if you happen to glance at a few images on social media that looked like this. Now, I did mention that this has its own major arcana. They are known as base cards. And the first few cards out of the major arcana are very much focused on the walls of the maze, because the major arcana are all about you as a person being in this maze, this labyrinth of life, being in it, moving into it, escaping from it, and everything in between. So you might think, oh, it's all a bit narrow, little same, but bear with, because as you move into the minors, the whole idea is they add colour and vibrancy and obviously enhance the whole journey. So I'll show you just a few of them. Well, this, the one I just used as the backing, it's one of my favourites. Here we go. So it does provide different storylines, as does any deck with the, I love this card, can I just say, it's one of my favourites. But yes, when you go into each suit, which I will explain. So don't be mistaken by, again, if you see a lot of this, because there's more to it. And I began to say before, it's all very well to say, oh, well, it's just a brick wall. But if this is freehand, oh my Lord, that is so accurate. It's all very well to design that as a graphic designer, but to just draw by hand, I'm well impressed. So sure, you could argue that the artwork may or may not be your style. I understand that. Technically, it may not be as expressive, as versatile, as diverse as a lot of the other beautiful oracle decks that are out there. But I think the thing is, they are designed to take you on a magical carpet ride via the artwork and the color combinations and the keywords down the bottom. Whereas this deck, I think, is very functional. It's here for a very specific reason. And allow me just to read you a couple of sentences from the introduction. And it says, this deck is a divination tool for spiritual growth. The cards are designed for use by those interested in self-development, with many of the cards dealing with spiritual concepts or things one encounters on the path. And more importantly, each card has a lesson or message to give the seeker. Mazes are an excellent metaphor for life. There is a goal to be reached, but the real experience is the journey. And even these cards here, that's what they are showing us, the journey throughout the maze. The walls force you down certain paths, but you still have choices to make among the options available. I think that's pretty cool. So as the video continues, I'll go into the guidebook and explain to you how how the deck works, but also go into the specifics without being too specific to at least explain how each category works. Because basically you've got a major arcana, minor arcana, court cards, and then other cards, but then the deck as a whole is also broken up into other groups, and I'll explain. And as I explain, I'll show you some of the artwork, and then at least you can get an idea whether this deck resonates with you or not. I'll show you what I wrote down just to give you a bit of a highlight. What can I put in front of it? Here we go. First of all, this deck has a series of base cards. So the base cards in this deck is basically, oh dear God, the base cards are like a major arcana. There are 67 of them. And you'll see here that I wrote that most of the cards, most of the base cards, feature a maze in some form or another, or from some perspective or another, as if you are in the maze itself. but there are a few cards that happen to feature characters, and they either hail from mythology or history. So that is the base cards or majors. As well as that, we have some minors, and as you can see, there are 3 suits. They are called flags, arches, and obelisks. Now, as you know, in the tarot, the minors are divided into 4 elements: fire, earth, air, water. And if you think about astrology, the signs are divided into the 4 elements also, but they are also divided again into another set of, well, they're called modes. It's 3 groups. There is cardinal, fixed, and mutable. So 3. So you can see the flags are fixed, the arches are cardinal, and the obelisks are mutable. And it's pretty self-explanatory. Cardinal is more or less like fire. It's very action-driven. Fixed is just that. Fixed can get stuck also. And then, of course, mutable is ever-changing. So that's the way the minors are divided. They do run from ace through to 10, like the tarot does. And to add to that, we have a series of court cards. Same thing, page, knight, queen, king. Now, aside from that, because this deck does feature 109 cards, there are some other featured cards also. So the only thing to add to that is we have majors, minors, courts, but the deck as a whole is also divided into a number of different groups. So I'll just show you that quickly. We have groups 1 to 7 are all the base cards. So let's just say the major arcana is divided into 7 groups. The next group, 8 through 10, are the suits divided up. The next group is the courts alone, that is 1 group. The following group is called the final group, which is some of those, I call them specialty cards that don't belong anywhere else. There's just a few of them. And then the final group is called the Joker group. The Joker group is 1 card only. Now I'll show you that. This is called Unknowable, and it more or less parallels a Joker card from a playing deck. So you'll see here, this little area is blank. All the other cards have a glyph here, which I'll show you in a moment. So this card stands alone, basically. The group that is called the final group, I'll just show you a few of them. Well, there is only a few. It's regarding yin and yang and oneness. And aside from that, which I find a little unusual, this final group also features the pages and the aces. I'm not sure why. I don't know. I've read through the book. I must have missed it or I can't remember. But just to show you a little bit of the artwork, the pages and the aces are part of the final group. And it's interesting because they both are that initiation energies, aren't they? Pages and aces. So, not sure why. I'll leave it at that, and if I find out, I will get back to you. But for now, I'd just like to feature the deck so you can get a bit of an idea. I'll just read you a quick snippet here about the base cards. So the basis of this deck is 67 cards depicting core archetypes covering all states of being. The Labyrinth Oracle uses the image of an external path or labyrinth to represent the inner spiritual path and the depths within. So each card depicts a maze in some form, and as I suggested earlier, there are just a few characters, but normally, most of them do feature a maze. And I'll show you just a few so you can get the idea. And this is what I was talking about too with regards to the artwork. Because the first few cards especially are all about introducing you to the maze, you could say, well, you know, the artwork's all a bit same. But I think you have to remind yourself that there is a very special reason for it. This is functional, right? And it does go into other areas as we go along. But I can understand, you know, if you just caught a glimpse of a few of these cards, you think, oh, really? But there's a reason. So to give you a a glimpse into the suits now. In addition to the base cards, this deck features 42 additional cards divided into 3 suits, as I said before. So these basically represent actions and desires, and they're designed to complement or add colour to the base card. So again, you can think, base cards, all right. That's why they're called the base cards. This is the basis and the basics of this whole formula. And then the suits add colour and dimension. So to give you an example, before I move on, the 3 suits are a trinity. So they represent experience, doing and being, beginning, middle, end, birth, existence, death, maiden, mother, crone, or cardinal, fixed and mutable. So you get the idea there. So you can see, just like the tarot, we have ace through to 10. And the arches represent cardinal energy. This is youthful and willful, filled with vitality. An arch, be it natural or man-made, is awe-inspiring, defying gravity, vaulting through space, open to being passed through or crossed over. Ultimately, this comes down to a desire for adventure and to have sensations. So arches are about experiencing. And I'll just show you a few more, just so you can get a feel for this suit. Okay, so that's the arches. This is mature and active, filled with creativity. A flag is about symbols, having man-made designs on it and marking something, each flag being unique. Ultimately, this comes down to a desire for self-expression, to create and manifest things, and ambition to distinguish yourself and leave your mark on the world. Flags are about doing. So I'll show you a few more. So you can see it's starting to get a little more colourful here. I think it's fascinating, this deck, I really do. So there's flags, and of course now we move on to obelisks, which I must say are my favourite suit. I'll show you a couple there that I really like. You can see the 8 is nice and lush. So obelisks, this is the mutable energy, and this is philosophical and serene, filled with wisdom. An obelisk is a mysterious and full of power, connected with the timeless earth from which we all came and which we all shall return. Ultimately, this comes down to a desire for spiritual enlightenment, to transcend to transcend ordinary consciousness, and obelisks are about being. So I'll show you just a few more. The 5. And here's the 9. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a little bit of a feel for the suits. Then in the guidebook, just to give you an idea, they do run through the numbers as well as the court cards. Very, very brief description, just a sentence each. But again, if you're familiar with the tarot, well, you're fine. It does go on to say, look, if you have tarot spreads that you really like, of course you can use this deck with your favourite tarot spreads. It'll work. But they also do suggest some of their own spreads throughout the book. Now, just to give you a glimpse into the groups, I said that we have the base cards are an example, as an example, are divided into 7 groups. They are the core group. These are the most generic cards representing the most core archetypes of both mazes and the human experience. So what we're talking about here is back to these early cards. Here, and to show you what I mean by some of the characters, okay, so you get the idea. So they are all involved in that first core group. The second group is called the adventure group. And these cards represent the process of going through and facing the challenges and difficulties we may meet in life. So to give you an idea, degeneration, he's going down the ramp. Trapped, it's a bit of a challenge, isn't it? Help, give me that damn rope so I can get out of here. Guidance. So as you can see, there's a reason for the cards. That, you know, they're very, very practical. I love it. The third group is called the hidden group, and these cards cover inner or psychological concepts and processes. And they are... I love this card. This is one of my all-time favorites. Absolutely love it. Here's another one of my favorites. So this is group 3. That's an interesting one. Curve. Discovery. Wow. And it's so true, isn't it? I mean, this is where we find ourselves in life at times. So that's that. Then the next group is called the meta group. And this is a little different because it says here in the book that these are a little more detached. These cards here represent you as the creator of a maze, or whatever in life a maze is representing. These cards either describe elements or materials. To give you an idea of what I mean, materials. So there's brick. So again, you might think, oh, well, what's that all about? It's just a brick wall. But it has a role. It has a purpose. Pardon me, just looking for another couple for you. Here we go, there's another one. See, there's the tarp. Nurturing, watering. So I think you get the idea. Here we are, we're planting. Wow, that's really cool. So that's them. The next group is called Action Group. And this group has you back inside the maze, where cards here cover processes or attitudes. Here is one. Recording. And okay, so just to give you an example of a few of them. Moving right along, the group number 6 is the emotion group. This group covers emotions or inner states of being. From here, this is another one of my favorites. I love that card. I absolutely love it. Remember I was saying they do feature, sorry, this is 46 to 54, pardon me. Yeah, features some of the characters as well. So here's one of the kings, so on and so forth. So that one there again was the emotions group, which is why we have some of the characters in that group. And the last of the base cards, it is called the endings group. The last group of base cards is about endings or ways of transitioning from one state to the other. So as an example, well, there's a transition. Just break through that wall. So there's a whole lot going on here. Wow. 55. So here's another one. This one's a bit sad. He just quit. He says, I just can't do it anymore. I'm out. Okay, so they're the base cards. And as you know, the following groups, we already know them. We have group 8 is the archers, group 9 is the flags, group 10 is the obelisks, group 11 is the courts, and then the final group are the ones I showed you before that feature the aces, the pages, and a few other specialty cards, the yin and yang. And then the last one is the joker group. So that's how it is divided. And from there on in the guidebook, oh, I should say this before I forget. Down here, I mentioned earlier, there are glyphs. And I think the idea behind the glyphs, I just want to show you a few. Down here, it looks like Tetris, and they even mention that in the, remember that game? That computer game, they mention that in the guidebook. And I think the idea is that the glyphs more or less represent what's going on in the artwork itself. See here, like she's down here and the walls are up high, and you can see that little dip in the glyph. Does that make sense? I hope so. Not all of them are easy to read. I'm still getting, see, this one's a bit different, change. But see, could that be where the door is? That kind of thing. Anyway, I think that's the idea behind them. I need to get a little more familiar, and I won't go into detail about all of that. But I think it is just to enhance the experience when you're looking at the actual cards themselves. I'll just show you one double page. I'll hold that up. You can freeze it for a moment if you choose. And it'll give you an idea as just to how each card is interpreted. Plenty of information. I think that's enough without going on for too long. And away you go. So something I didn't mention before, cardstock to me is very similar to US games. So my US games have a slight sheen due to the lamination. But as far as the strength goes, this is flat, which I like. It's not glary at all. But I do, when I feel them, I do think they're very, very similar. I did compare them before, and I don't have the other cards with me now. As far as shuffling goes, they are a dream. I did shuffle them, riffle shuffle as well as overhand, but I've divided them all into sections now, so I won't worry now. But just to give you an idea, I'm not sure if Natalia edged these, possibly. But if you're watching Natalia, whatever you used, it's beautiful because it's this gorgeous satiny finish on the edging here. So yeah, very, very easy to use and handle, but you don't get that sense that they're going to fall apart. Not at all. Not at all. So I'm just wondering whether I should, well, I actually did do a spread with this, and when I read it intuitively, I was actually blown away. And then the book obviously clarified so much for me, but it did take me in a slightly different direction to my own intuitive reading. However, it makes perfect sense. So once you get into it and appreciate what you're dealing with, it's just so, I actually find the artwork to be very inviting because it's clean, clear and concise. It has a purpose. It's not just here to look pretty. And I really admire, even looking at the floorboards on these decks, I just really admire Kathy Pullen's skills as an artist. Wow. So yeah, it's just not, it's not worth comparing this deck to other oracles that are just designed to enhance your experience through their beauty. This is functional and it's still really beautifully done. It's just a very different style. I think that's something that I would definitely keep in mind if you're considering buying it. But once you start doing your spreads, wow, does it speak. So thank you very, very much for watching. For those of you who want to hang around, I'll follow up now with a spread that's actually sincere. I'm going to ask a relevant question to my life at the moment, and I'll share it with you. So, friends, 'tis the following day. So all of a sudden we're back in heatwave conditions where I live, and I'm on the coast. Imagine what it's like inland, dear God. I think my camera decided to overheat. It got into a fluster and had a bit of a spack attack. I'm so lucky that I got through the whole walkthrough of this deck. However, upon drawing some cards based on one of the spreads provided in the guidebook, my camera was in a bit of a mood and decided to turn on and off periodically. I managed to capture the segment of actually drawing some cards, so you can see that is authentic, it's the real deal. And I was asking questions that relate to my current life circumstance, and I really wanted to see, first of all, how the deck spoke to me intuitively, and from there dive into the guidebook to show you how it speaks. Didn't capture all of it, but captured most of it. So what I think I might do is, I'll end this video here for those of you who are just curious to see how the deck looks, and perhaps, or hopefully, you gained enough insight from the information I shared in the guidebook. And if anyone's interested and you want to view the spread itself that I decided to do, it'll be called a part 2, or I may even include a couple of other spreads and just do a video on spreads. Whatever I decide, it's going to be the video following this one. I hope that makes sense, because I would just like to get this video up and running before my camera has another SPAC attack. So I'm about to upload. Hope that doesn't confuse anyone, and if you're still here, thanks so much for watching. I'm really grateful. Take care.